On December the 13th, 1918, he predicts the emergence of the European Economic Union under the leadership of an economically powerful Germany when he says, "I see a blue stone turning. It changes into a cannon wheel, which falls and breaks on the ground. The soil it falls upon is cultivated and becomes fruitful." The unfulfilled part of the prophecy reads, "In Europe I see only one sisal tree, and the tree turns to flowers." Sisal trees were seen as symbol for foreign governments. Blue was the color for Germany, just as red was the color of the enemy. The European Economic Union is the first step to a single European government. April the 4th, 1919. In Europe I see three sickles merge into one. I see the wagons rolling in from north to east. They look like Turkish wagons, but they are new and covered in canvas. Wagons rolling always indicated war. June the 8th, 1919. In Europe I see three troughs filled with dry grass. A Turk sets them on fire. The fire burns fiercely, then it suddenly dies. In 1991, Saddam Hussein attacked three countries, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait. He set fire to the oil wells. The fires burned fiercely, but were eventually brought under control. The scene then speaks of another war to come, a war in which Russia slides back into communism, and joins China and the Middle East. Russia slides back into communism and joins China and the Middle East to fight against America and Germany. The war is won by the West, with Germany becoming the leading economic nation on earth. England is all but destroyed in this final war. I see a great war, fast and furious. It will be fought mostly from the skies. I see weapons that we have not even dreamt of. Germs that cause sickness and electric rays that devastate the earth. Russia is creating a new USSR, and that the Americans have not abandoned their Star Wars program. In these days, says Sinner, Africa will fall into anarchy and mass starvation. October the 1st, 1917. In Johannesburg, I see a woodpile about 100 yards in diameter. A table is set, bowls of cold soup and cold porridge come on the table. I see mealy husks burning. In these days, Sina says, white racism will be on the increase all over the world, especially in Europe. For the Afrikaner nation, it will be a dark time when many forces will be aligned against it. But then, he says, the Afrikaners will rise again and regain their freedom. The nation will take their destiny into their own hands. There will be a great silence before the storm. I see a pail full of blood toppling, falling. And from the pail will rise the Fierclear flag to fly again over a free nation. When will this happen? When people asked Zina for dates, he simply said, "The time and place is known only to the Lord." But there are some indicators. In 1916, he tells his friend, Boy Musman, "There will come a time when I will be once again in the news. In those days, I see we are still fighting amongst ourselves. Then it is over, and we will have a black government. It is then that the Afrikaners' final and fiercest struggle will begin." On his deathbed, he said, "I see the Vierkleur flying again. It is God's will. You will fight differently from the way we fought. But there will be more of you this time." And then he said something strange. "This will come to pass when the ice starts melting."
In the winter of 2005, scientists made a frightening discovery. Increasing global temperatures were causing the Greenland ice sheet to melt at an alarming rate. With the help of satellite sensors, scientists saw that the glaciers had softened to the point that they risked a sudden collapse. If that happens, it would cause a catastrophic rise in sea level.
If we continue on business as usual, it will be this century, and very possibly before the middle of the century.
You mentioned the sea level would rise 20 feet alone if Greenland melted. How does that affect the world?
Well, that kind of an increase would inundate most of South Florida, most of South Louisiana, parts of Manhattan. In the low countries of Europe, like the Netherlands and Belgium, they would be almost completely covered.
In China, 250 million people would be underwater. Almost the entire nation of Bangladesh.
It's even been speculated that if the sea level rise occurred fast enough, some major cities might have to be abandoned, like for instance London, because it's too complex and too expensive to build the seawalls as high as are necessary.
Are you going to build a wall 25 meters high around Florida? I don't think so.
You're talking about hundreds of millions of refugees. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I think it's impossible to imagine a strain
It is.
on the system quite that big.
It really is. We have seen what happened when 100,000 people were displaced from New Orleans and the Gulf Coast communities. And it's difficult to imagine a couple of 100 million.
You're going to see mass migrations on a biblical scale. Obviously, the movement of people into new areas and the social ramifications of that are going to cause real problems.
As an estimated 1 billion people worldwide are forced inland by rising waters, the remaining habitable land will ironically be gripped by a different kind of water crisis.
In the West, 75% of the water comes from snowpack. We're going to lose that snowpack. We've built up cities, huge cities, that depend totally on that water.
With the planet's fresh water in short supply, it would become increasingly difficult to grow crops, setting off a worldwide food shortage, igniting a new set of crises.
The United Nations identifies something like 150 flashpoints where wars may be fought over water.
War, famine, and drought, coupled with an unstable climate system, could push the death toll into the billions.
This is a level of disaster that the world has never seen.